video is sponsored by MacPaw. Ooh, okay. Alright, now we're working. Hey, what's up guys, I'm KBHD here, and today was Apple's online-only WWDC 2020, the Worldwide Developer Conference, where they, of course, typically have a lot to say about software. There's sometimes some hardware surprises. There was no hardware this year, but they did have some good announcements. There's some cool new features, and there was a bigger announcement at the end. But first, can I just say, as a video nerd, the production was A+. I was kind of wondering leading up to it, how would Apple do an online-only WWDC keynote? You know, they've been the gold standard for live events for years, and we've seen that excellence, but now that they can't have people there, will they still do it on stage like that, but with nobody clapping? Would it be kind of awkward? But they nailed it. Essentially, it was a pre-recorded presentation, so it was a little more dynamic with some varied locations around Apple campus, some variety of presenters, same style, but they kept up the pacing and kept down the awkward jokes, and they still got to flex their production muscle a little bit with some pretty wild, over-the-top, but still tasteful transitions thanks to some drone work. I don't know if the Apple team watches these recap videos ever or even cares what people think of it, but bravo, bravo. So it kicked off with iOS 14, and there's some new features and some fresh new looks, and there was a sort of a theme to it. Don't worry, you'll pick up on it. So first off, in the iPhone, there's what's called the app library, basically an app drawer that's organized by categories, recently added, etc. Helps you see everything in one place instead of having to swipe through all of your pages of apps. And what I thought was nice is now, since you have that all app view, you can actually hide some of those extra pages of apps that you don't need just sitting over there. So you go into what I swear they called it on stage jiggle view.
I just go into jiggle mode?
And then tap the dots at the bottom, and then just uncheck the pages that you don't want to see anymore. Nice. And then they also added widgets to the home screen. So they're taking them out of the today only view on the side, and you can put those widgets anywhere on your home screen. Well, actually not quite anywhere on the home screen. I still think they're pinned to the top, so you can't truly put them anywhere on the whole grid like free placement, like a certain other OS with widgets. But nevertheless, widgets are welcome. They're rich. They have plenty of information in them. Plus there's this new Smart Stack widget, which essentially changes what widget it is throughout the day. So it starts off as like your calendar widget in the morning, but through the day, as things happen or as it knows what you want to do, it'll switch to your news briefing during the day, or maybe turns into a summary of your fitness activity in the afternoon. Like, hey, get a workout in. So home screen customization, an app drawer, widgets on the home screen. Just stop me if you've seen this before. They also added picture-in-picture video support much more generally, and that's something that's been sorely missed for a while in iOS. It's been in other OSs. And then Siri has a UI overhaul. It's not full screen anymore, but it's a much smaller portion along the bottom of the screen now. You know, kind of like the Google Assistant with, I don't know. It's kind of like Android crawled so iPhone could run. But for real, Siri should have way more answers in her knowledge graph now, so she can hopefully answer way more questions instead of just telling you, here, I looked that up for you, or here's what I found. And then there's a few more things like a new Translate app that they're adding, which will hopefully let you have conversations back and forth in different languages. You know, if only there was some other industry standard Translate app I could compare that to. Okay, I'll stop. And then there's also something called app clips. And they basically let you interact with small parts of apps that you don't even have installed. And it'll plug into Apple Pay and sign in with Apple and everything else. And you can really quickly do stuff that you couldn't do without that app. And they've made it easy for developers to build in. It reminds me a lot of, Android's instant apps. Basically, the theme, of course, is we're going to see a lot more overlap with these two mature OSs, iOS and Android. It's just funny that so many of these new features in iOS 14 have been around since like the beginning of Android. But that's not to say there weren't some other features that weren't in Android. And hey, maybe they should copy these features. In the messaging app, for example, you'll be able to pin conversations to the top, and they added inline replies in group chat and mentions in a thread. So you can have a group chat that only sends you notifications when someone mentions your name, kind of like Slack. That's pretty sweet. Apple Maps has now added a couple new countries and a dedicated cycling mode for when there's bike routes, and also a new EV routing mode where it knows, once you tell it, what type of electric car you have and then can route you along the way where you have compatible chargers for your car. That's something Google Maps should add. And then underrated, CarPlay gets a nice fresh UI overhaul with wallpapers. A good wallpaper just really sets your mood for the day, not gonna lie. But maybe the most impressive demo of them all was using the iPhone as car keys. So the first car that's gonna be compatible with this is the 2021 BMW M5, which they had there. And there will be more cars in the future compatible with this, but it will literally use NFC to turn your phone into your car keys to unlock the car and then dock it and start up and drive away. Which on one hand is like, oh great, okay, if I lose my phone, now I also lose my car keys. But on the other hand, if I lose my phone, I was already losing my wallet, my phone, my camera, my communicator. I might as well add car keys to that list, I guess. So then next up was iPadOS 14. And that got a lot of the same improvements you saw with iOS. So the new widgets with the customizations. Siri is now in the bottom corner. So again, it's not taking up the whole screen to tell you that it's gonna look for something. Now when calls come in, they don't take up the entire screen too, just another small notification, thank God. And there's a smaller universal search bar. You know, it's a lot of the same stuff we saw with the iPhone, but some of the next level stuff came with the Apple Pencil. So Scribble lets you handwrite in any text field, and any text you write or take notes in will automatically be converted to text that you can then copy and paste into other places and search with universal search. Super powerful OCR, really useful, kind of similar to what we saw with the Galaxy Note. But of course now it's all on your iPad and the iPhone and the Mac. Another fun one, you can draw a simple shape and then pause at the end and it'll automatically draw a perfect version of that shape. One thing that I tweeted about during the keynote that I think got a lot of attention, but it's really one of those examples of why Apple's ecosystem is so important to them, is because they have this integration where it's a new AirPods feature. And if you're listening to AirPods and you have your iPhone out, it can tell now with iOS 14 when you put down your iPhone and pick up your iPad, and it'll switch your AirPods audio straight away to whatever you start doing on that iPad. And if you put down the iPad and start using the Mac, it'll know that too and switch your audio, all of that automatically. That's the kind of stuff you look forward to. Oh, and another one of those things that sort of slept under the radar, but it was on that slide that they put at the end of some of the sections where there's some stuff they didn't get to talk about, and that is you'll be able to set a default email and browser app on the iPad and the iPhone. Finally, again, this has been something you could do on other OSs, but hey, Gmail as a default, Chrome as a default, you can now actually do that. Thank you. I'll probably do a sort of a roundup of the best features of iOS 14 and iPadOS 14. The betas are out now. You can grab them right now. I probably will as soon as I'm done shooting this. But similar to what I did with Android 11, maybe leave a thumbs up below if you're interested in seeing a video like that. I feel like a lot of people are just interested in seeing how the widgets will actually work. But let's move on, because they moved on to WatchOS 7. This is a lighter update. They had some new features. You can now do watch face sharing, so you can share via messages to contacts or to social media if you want to share your watch face. And you can now do multiple complications from one app, which is nice, but it's still not a totally custom third-party watch face like we want. Oh, and there's also now this is the most 2020 thing ever, automatic hand washing detection. As you start washing your hands, it hears with the microphones the sound of soap and water, and will start a countdown timer and won't stop until you get to 20 seconds, encouraging you to wash your hands properly. This is one of those things we're gonna look back at like, wow, what a time to be alive. But the biggest feature, for sure, on the new Apple WatchOS is sleep tracking. This is something we kind of wondered about since the Apple Watch first came out. It's one of those big features other fitness bands had. There's now gonna be sleep tracking on the Apple Watch, which brings up the question, when do you charge it? And I think the answer, unofficial, maybe officially, but the answer is in the morning. So if you wear the Apple Watch all day, you typically get about 2 days of battery life with it. So you wear it all day, then you wear it all night, it tracks your sleep. The screen is off. It can wake you up with a haptic vibration so you don't wake up other people around you. And then you charge it like briefly for like a half an hour in the morning, and then you put it back on and you start your day with a full battery. I think that's how it should work. Or you could just not have it track your sleep if you're not into that. All right, the biggest update many people's opinions, but the biggest update from WWDC, macOS Big Sur. So this is macOS 11. I don't know if you caught that during the keynote, but we've had macOS 10.x.x for a while now. This is macOS 11, and it is the biggest change since macOS 10 basically started. And it's mostly a design overhaul, and I have mixed feelings about it because I like some of it, and I just don't like some other parts. Remember when I said a good wallpaper sort of sets your tone for the day? I think the new wallpaper I'll link it below, sure. I think it kind of masks some of the things that I don't like so much. First of all, there's way more rounded corners, way more transparency with windows and menus, and way more variation in textures. I don't like the rounded corners on everything, but I'm cool with the rest of that. Then there's a new dock with new icons, and this I have to do a double take at. I do not like a lot of these new icons, and I think it's something about the shading or the shadowing that they added. The uniformity in size, that is great, but just looking at like the icons by themselves, like the Finder icon, the FaceTime icon, I don't know, looks kind of weird to me. Maybe let me know what you think. I don't hide my dock. You can't see it over here, but it's always on the side there. And this is probably one of those things we'll get used to in like 2 weeks of having it, but maybe this will make me finally hide my dock. I don't know, looks kind of weird. But there's also a new quick settings and notification center that really struck me because it really looks like it's modeled after the iPad, which also makes it feel like it would work better with touch than a mouse. Now, I don't use the notification center in my daily use that often, but the inspiration here is pretty clear, and that is a big change for people who actually do use this often. But again, most of that is visual changes, but that brought us up to the big announcement, which is the big transition. So Apple did in fact use WWDC 2020 to announce that they will be transitioning the Mac from Intel silicon to Apple's own custom silicon. And this isn't really a surprise. We sort of saw this churning in the background and we knew it was coming, but it's a big deal. You see, Apple has had their own silicon in some of their products for a little while now. It's in the Apple Watch. But we've seen the type of impressive performance they can get out of an iPhone. Pretty good. And then we saw the type of impressive performance they can get out of an iPad. Best in class, better than a lot of laptops. So now we're expecting to start seeing the type of performance we can get out of the thermal architecture of a laptop and a desktop. Now there's upsides to this and downsides. The upside is, of course, with their own chips in these devices, you can expect next level performance that you can unlock, and it's also clearly a huge advantage for Apple to control their own destiny when it comes to performance updates and features instead of waiting for and relying on Intel. But on the other side of the coin, there now has to be a transition period because as a developer, this is a developer conference, you now have this choice, weirdly, between optimizing for Intel Macs or optimizing for Apple Silicon Macs, whatever they call them. Because for a while, these two things will both exist at the same time. Now, Apple talked about this at length on stage. This is why they talked about smoothing it as much as possible with Xcode and a universal binary that works on both Intel-based Macs and Apple Silicon. But there's probably a brief moment in time where some apps work better on Intel and some apps work better on Apple's chips, and you have to make your choice of which Mac to buy accordingly. Now, Craig Federighi on stage said he expects this transition period to last about 2 years. Seems reasonable. And he also said that they still have some more Intel Macs in the pipeline coming up, and to also expect the first Apple-based Mac. What is it called? Apple Silicon-based Mac? The first one of those will be coming out by the end of this year, 2020. But yeah, I'm super curious what sort of things that will unlock for Apple as far as performance when they make their own chips. Like, I'm imagining in a couple years, a Mac Pro just being so sick, having all the thermal headroom in the world, or even just a MacBook Pro that doesn't thermally throttle because they're so much better at that architecture than Intel has been. But you know what? That is about it. That wraps it up for what we saw at WWDC. Again, we'll take a second look at those features in iOS and iPadOS, but fun fact, we'll also be having Craig Federighi as a guest joining me on the Waveform podcast this week. So I will ask, leave in the comments below what you want to ask, what you want us to talk about, what sort of clarification or specific questions you might have, and Craig and I will talk about it. Until then, thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one, and shout out to MacPaw for sponsoring this video. So with as much good as Apple does with macOS, it can still build up imperfections over time, and it does need maintenance, so that's where their product, Clean My Mac X, comes in. It helps you stay aware of all the apps and services installed on your Mac and all your permissions, so you can figure out which programs have access to things like your camera and your microphone, and it gives you more control over apps and their files, helping you free up space. And the most popular feature, Smart Scan, helps you find logs and cache files that are no longer needed and get rid of them, thus cleaning up your Mac. So I'll leave a link below to check it out for your Mac. And thanks again to MacPaw for sponsoring this video. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.